Question 4. Which of the following phrases are in the Bible? A. We are justified by faith alone. B. You see then how a man is justified by works, and not by faith only. C. Both A and B. D. None of the above. Answer 4.
Well, some might be surprised to know that the phrase, "we are justified by faith alone," is not in the Bible. Christians will often quote this, but they are not quoting the Bible. They are instead quoting Martin Luther. Let's look at the verse Romans 3:28 as it really appears in the King James. Therefore we conclude that a man is justified by moral conviction without or apart from the works of the law. Now the word alone is not in there. Why did Martin Luther add it? Luther tried to make a disconnect between the so-called gospel and the Torah. Gospel does not teach me what I should do, for that is the proper function of the law, but what someone else has done for me, namely that Jesus Christ, the Son of God, has suffered and died to deliver me from sin and death. The gospel commands me to accept and believe this, and this is what is called the truth of the gospel. But brothers and sisters, we know believing goes hand in hand with obeying. It is no wonder then that Luther forgot the Torah, and for one thing amongst many, profaned the Sabbath like a true Protestant under Catholicism. He disobeyed the fourth commandment to keep the seventh-day Sabbath and instead kept Rome's venerable day of the sun, the first day. Pagans call it Sunday. Now, context is key as always. In Romans chapter 3, Shaul is not speaking about justification without Torah as a whole. He is speaking to the Yahudim. Today they call them Jews, a misnomer by the way. But he is saying a man is not saved by the works of the circumcision law. In other words, a Gentile may be saved through moral conviction in Yahushua even though he is not circumcised. Of course they translated moral conviction as faith after the fides goddess. Romans 3:29, or is he the Elohim of the Yahudim only and not also the nations? Yes, of the nations also. Since it is one Elohim who will justify circumcision by moral conviction. And on circumcision through moral conviction, Luther willfully added to an already misunderstood scripture. I order it to be so, and my will is reason enough. I know very well that the word alone is not in the Latin or the Greek text. Now, we know what happens to people who add to the scriptures. He thus further corrupted the truth by wiping out the Torah as if it has no place in salvation. Christianity then jumped on this, and the phrase, faith alone, stuck.
Now let's see if B is correct.
Yes, this is from James 2:24. So the answer is B. It is easy to see why Martin Luther looked down on this epistle of James. It exposes Luther's faith alone heresy. Therefore, St. James' epistle is really an epistle of straw compared to these others, for it has nothing of the nature of the gospel about it.
Which works is James referring to?
Well, this excludes circumcision for Gentiles who were not born in Israel, but who come to Yahoo through moral conviction in Yahushua. These works include all the rest of Torah, such as keeping the Sabbath, not eating any unclean thing, etc., etc. It does not include dead works, doctrines of men such as Catholic Sunday inventions, indulgences, or perhaps a Baptist minister who says you must wear a tie to church, etc. These are types of things Yahushua exposed with the Pharisees. Shaul clearly supports James in his conclusion. Romans 3:31, do we then make void the Torah through moral conviction? Elohim forbid, yea, we establish the Torah. Again, this is Torah as a whole with the exclusion of Gentile circumcision. Moral conviction is obedience to Torah regardless of being circumcised. One has to be circumcised in the heart. Remember, that is where Torah is written under the renewed covenant. Romans 2:29, but he is a Jew who is one inwardly, and circumcision is of the heart, in spirit and not in letter, whose praise is not from men, but from Elohim. In spirit and not in letter simply means that the Torah is not in word only, but in deed. The renewed covenant in no way removes the Mosaic law. On the contrary, it is written by Yahweh on the heart, and thus the heart must be circumcised in every believer to be obedient. Hebrews 8:10, quoting the prophet Jeremiah 31:33, for this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, says Yahuwah, I will put my laws into their mind and write them in their hearts, and I will be their Elohim, and they shall be my people.
Who is the house of Israel? Is this not referring to Jews only here?
Of course not. Every believer under the renewed covenant through Yahushua becomes a citizen of Israel irrespective of circumcision. Ephesians 2:11, therefore remember that you, the nations, Gentiles, in time past were in the flesh, who are called uncircumcision by that which is called the circumcision in the flesh made by hands. And that at that time you were without Mashiach, being aliens from the commonwealth, citizenship of Israel, and strangers from the covenants of promise, having no hope, and without Elohim in the world. But now in Yahushua HaMashiach, you who were once afar off are made near by the blood of Mashiach. For he is our shalom, he making us both one, and he has broken down the middle wall of partition between us.
If you learned something from this Q&A session, let us know in the comments. Give us a like and press the subscribe button here so we can continue making more content like this.